What if I told you everything you've been told about Bigfoot is a lie? Would you believe me if I told you Bigfoot was a member of an royal bloodline tracing back hundreds of years? Could you even fathom if Bigfoot that we celebrate today is a symbol of corrupt greed in the New World Order? In this short film I will present to you my very own theory of Bigfoot and how it's for more likely this is an ancient race that has been covered up from us by the hidden hand. We are led to believe that some prehistoric Sasquatch has survived all these years and now one has it mounted on their wall. In a year where we have seen Katy Perry become an astronaut and still no sign of a Sasquatch. We are now on season 12 of Finding Bigfoot and still haven't found him or even a better video than a grainy 70s exploitation video that has circulated for years. As I present my theory, remember that even though I have put in hours of research, that I am not an expert. I have no formal degree in Bigfoot biology or any other field. As always, do your own research. Hypertrichosis is a rare and curious condition that causes excessive hair growth anywhere on a person's body. Hypertrichosis is sometimes known as werewolf syndrome. Congenital hypertrichosis may run in the family. It seems to be caused by genes that stimulate hair growth becoming abnormally active. In most people, the genes that caused extensive hair growth in humankind's very early ancestors are now inactive because people do not need to be covered in hair to stay warm. In people with congenital hypertrichosis, these genes get reactivated in the womb. There is still no known cause for this. It was the evening of July 25, 1547, and France was celebrating its newly crowned ruler, King Henry II. After leading an already turbulent life that included spending time as a hostage in Spain, Henry was finally ascending the throne, and yet his rise to power was not the only thing occupying the minds of those around him that night. For many, the big topic of conversation was about one of his gifts. It was small in stature and looked about with frightened eyes. But this was no animal, this creature was a 10-year-old human boy. And now, presented in the gift box of an iron cage, he officially belonged to the King of France. What was of little interest to those staring all around him was that this boy had a name and a story. He was born Pedro González, and until recently his home was Tenerife in the Canary Islands. González was stolen from his homeland and presented before royalty because of his very rare and undeniable appearance. Born with the genetic condition known today as congenital hypertrichosis, Pedro was completely covered with a layer of hair, making him the living picture of the vicious, wild men of myths and lore. In the 16th century, any appearance that differed from the norm automatically made the bearer a curiosity, and after his debut as a novelty he was brought to the dungeon for observation. The court doctors kept watch over young Pedro overnight, waiting for some hint of the savage behavior that was expected of him, but by dawn they all had come to the same conclusion. He was simply a polite little boy covered in hair soft as sable. Intrigued by the doctor's findings, Henry II came up with a new goal. He was going to conduct a long-term experiment to see if he could turn his wild man into an educated gentleman. He began by giving him the revised Latin name of Petrus Gonsalvus. When he was in his early 20s, Gonsalvus's world was rocked when Henry II died after a jousting accident on July 10, 1559. With his protector and mentor now gone and the lines of his status being blurred, he was placed under the ownership of Henry's widow and regent, the cruel Catherine de' Medici. People like Petrus were rare, and rare meant that they were valuable. He had proven he could learn and live as a nobleman, so why should he not marry and have children, valuable children, like any other nobleman? She set out to find a woman to be his wife, and after an extensive examination of candidates, she found a young French woman, also named Catherine, to fill the role. This young Catherine was the daughter of a royal court servant, and some accounts say she was chosen by the queen specifically to see what would happen when someone with such beauty was matched with someone with the appearance of a beast. Up until her wedding day, the bride remained totally unaware of Petrus's condition, only becoming aware of his appearance when they met at the altar. Approximately 1 year after their wedding, Petrus and Catherine welcomed their first child, a son, which showed no trace of his father's genetic affliction. Their second child, another son, was also free of hair, but their third and fourth children carried the gene, making them covered in the same soft hair as their father. Catherine de' Medici was simply delighted. In her mind her experiment had worked and the outcome was a wild family of her own creation. In total the pair had 7 children, 4 of which were covered in fur, and the family of oddities began to tour Europe, appearing before royal courts to the delight and fascination of everyone who laid eyes on them. As the family was broken up, the remaining pieces began to fade from the public eye, with one of the last accounts of Petrus and Catherine stating that they had obtained a home in Capodimonte, Italy, an estate still ruled by the duke, who took them in and broke them apart with greed. It was here that Petrus and Catherine Gonsalvus were finally able to have some of the peace and solitude that had eluded them their entire married lives. In 1740, a French author by the name of Gabrielle Suzanne Barbat de Villeneuve published a tale in the La Jeune Américaine et les Contes Marins, the Young American and Marine Tales. Originally the length of a novel, the tale was adapted and published by Jean-Marie Leprince de Beaumont in 1756 as a cautionary tale to teach young girls a lesson. The story was fanciful, filled with fairies, a castle, a father in trouble, a beautiful woman trapped by circumstance, and a tragic and transformed prince. The story, entitled La Belle et la Bête, has stood the test of time, being brought to audiences through multiple adaptations in film, television, and theater. The title is simple but intriguing, inviting readers into the wondrous tale of Beauty and the Beast and unknowingly giving them a taste of a true royal tragedy. Ron Perlman was in that old Beauty and the Beast show, I know, crazy right? So already we can see where the story has been twisted from people to werewolves to Bigfoot. The Bigfoot we know is classic misdirection. Ever wonder how a show keeps going 12 seasons with nothing to show for it? At least Oak Island found some coins. Either way, you can see the deception starting, and it's only the end of chapter 1. I'm gonna try and finish this, but I get bored fast. Tops'll have 3 chapters. Next chapter will be other examples of this throughout history, with the third bringing to conclusion my theory that the origin of this bloodline can be traced back to the Bible days. So chapter 2, more facts to prove my claim, and then 3 will just be me letting rip with my theory.
Welcome to part 2 of my theory on Bigfoot, or lack thereof. In this second installment of exposing the mainstream Sasquatch narrative, Fedor Adrianovich Jevtichu, better known as Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy, was a famous Russian sideshow performer who toured Europe with his father, the wild man from the Kostroma forest, in 1873 and was brought to the United States of America in 1884 by P.T. Barnum. Born in St. Petersburg, Imperial Russia in 1868, Fedor Jevtichu suffered from the medical condition hypertrichosis. His father Adrian, also hypertrichotic, had performed in French circuses. In 1873, Adrian appeared in European exhibitions as the wild man from the Kostroma forest. Along with his son, too, 10 years later Fedor returned as Theodore Petrov, was recruited by A.P.T. Barnum agent in 1884, and joined Barnum in America as Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy. Barnum created a story that involved a hunter in Kostroma who tracked Fedor and his father to their cave and captured them. Barnum described Adrian as a savage who could not be civilized. Barnum made a point of stressing Fedor's resemblance to a dog, and explained that when he was upset he would bark and growl. In the show, Fedor obliged by doing so. Fedor spoke Russian, German, and English, and toured Europe and the United States extensively. He died in Salonika, Greece, then part of the Ottoman Empire, from pneumonia on January 31, 1904. Does Lionel the Lion-Faced Man ring any bells, or sometimes he went by Steve? Stefan Bibrowski, better known as Lionel the Lion-Faced Man, was a famous sideshow performer. His whole body was covered with long hair that gave him the appearance of a lion. This was likely due to a rare condition called hypertrichosis. Bibrowski was born in 1890 in Włocławek in Congress, Poland, with 2.5 centimeters hair covering his body. His mother, Benedetta, blamed the condition on the mauling of his father, Michael, by a lion, which she claimed to have witnessed while pregnant with Stefan. She considered Stefan an abomination and gave him up to a German impresario named Sedlmayr when he was 4 years old. Sedlmayr gave him his stage name and started exhibiting him around Europe. By the time he was put on exhibit, Lionel's hair had grown to 20 centimeters, 7.9 in, on his face and hung about 10 centimeters, 3.9 in, everywhere else. His body was almost entirely covered with hair, the only exceptions being the palms of his hands and the soles of his feet. In 1901, Lionel traveled to the United States and started appearing with the Barnum and Bailey Circus. He toured with the circus from then on, occasionally going back to Europe. In his act, Lionel performed gymnastic tricks, and also spoke to people to show his gentle side that sharply contrasted with his appearance. He settled in the U.S. in 1920, becoming a popular attraction, and moved to New York City, where he was a fixture at Coney Island. Alice Elizabeth Doherty, who became known as the Minnesota Woolly Girl, holds the unique distinction of being the only recorded American in history to be born with hypertrichosis. A condition that is exceedingly rare and unusual, Alice was born with a 2 mane of fine and silky blonde hair on March 14, 1887 in Minneapolis. None of her family exhibited similar traits, and her parents were at a loss to explain why their baby girl was stricken with the condition. Her father Aloysius, in particular, found the situation difficult to comprehend, but he soon noted that little blue-eyed Alice was a human marvel, one that the public would gladly pay good money to witness. Alice Doherty was exhibited by her parents as a sideshow attraction from as young as 2 years old on a local level. However, such was the demand to see the woolly girl, that this quickly led to larger tours of the Midwest. Alice was consistently a stand-alone exhibit, on display for extended periods of time in what was known as a storefront exhibition. It was a common practice for promoters or family members to rent commercial space in a busy city center, set up an exhibit, and sell tickets to the public before moving on to another city. Many predominant human curiosities earned their keep in this manner, and the Doherty family managed to earn a comfortable living from their unique daughter in this way. Despite the fact that hypertrichosis is exceedingly rare, at the time Alice was touring in the late 1800s there was actually several others with the condition touring at the same time: Stefan Bibrowski, Lionel, the lion-faced boy, and Fedor Jevtuchevant, Jojo the dog-faced boy, who both proved to be far more successful in both fame and fortune when compared to Alice Doherty. This was likely due to the fact that they had legendary promoters behind them. Alice, on the other hand, was a quiet American girl managed by well-meaning family members. That's only 3 examples of where people, and 2 of those made it to the United States of America. There are a few more examples of hypertrichosis throughout the world that we know about. I still think the same logic applies, that if someone was able to breed these were humans, that they would be gifted to the elite like some AKC registered poodle. Sad that wealthy people that ran the circus would parade them around without a leash as they performed in front of audiences. Thank you for listening to another installment. Part 3 will be released soon. Peace out.
So at this point, I just think it's highly more likely that it's someone walking around in the woods with hypertrichosis than a Bigfoot. I think Bigfoot is just designed to sell t-shirts and marketing and everything like that. I feel like Pedro probably had some kids. They went to the circus. Then they spawned Jojo and Steven the dog-faced man and Ann. One of them had some kids. They caught the kids walking through the woods over here. That's what you see in that video. It's probably a setup. Probably got some people living in a castle that look like that. If I can just take a second and talk about Pedro for a minute and how King Henry II was the one taking care of him. He died, and then he was being took care of by that Catherine de Medici, which they made the show on Stars, they made the show on Netflix, but I've yet to see a wolf person on any of these shows. So I'm not sure why they're trying to hide it or to keep it from everybody, or I guess just keep it a secret that they exist. And actually, I do know why they hide it, because Bigfoot is a multi-million-dollar business. They're making money off shirts, movies, hats, video games, everything. None of the movies have got it right. The only one I've seen that's even came close is called The Son of Bigfoot, where it shows that it's hereditary. Yeah, because if I had to take a guess, I'd say that they got him on an island somewhere researching. Probably either trying to solve hair loss or either trying to make a super soldier, something like that. So in conclusion, Bigfoot and Sasquatch equals BS, but always do your own research, because I might be totally wrong.